She quickly looked at the door and then at Adoma, who was trying to sit up but was too weak. Abena placed a finger on her lips. Shh, don't make a sound. They both listened quietly as the footsteps moved closer to the door of the hut. She turned quickly to look at Adoma, the pregnant dwarf, who was lying weakly on the mat. Adoma looked at Abena with fear in her eyes, clutching her big belly. Suddenly, the door opened with a loud creak. Abena rushed quickly and pushed the door forward, using her body to block the person outside from seeing inside the hut. Who is there? Why are you opening my door like that? Abena asked, breathing heavily, sweat on her forehead. Standing by the door was Mamiasi, the village gossip. Everyone in the village knew her as the woman who loved to poke her nose into other people's business. She was holding her waist with one hand, and her other hand was on the door, trying to push it open wider, stretching her neck to look inside Abena's hut. Abena blocked her view with her body, spreading her arms across the door frame. Mamiasi raised her eyebrows and tried to look over Abena's shoulder. What are you hiding in there, Abena? She asked, with suspicion in her voice. Abena forced a small laugh. Hide? Hide what? What is it, Mami? So early this morning. But Mamiasi did not stop. She bent to the left and then to the right, trying to see inside the hut. But Abena moved with her, blocking her view like a wall. Ha! Ha! Abena, you are behaving strangely this morning, Mamiasi said, clicking her tongue. Are you hiding something? Or is there a man in there with you? Abena's eyes widened in shock. A man in my hut? Mamiase, what kind of talk is that early in the morning? But Mamiase was not ready to leave. She pressed her face closer, her eyes sharp like a hawk's eyes, looking for even the smallest clue. I only came to borrow your basket, Mamiase said, folding her arms across her chest. Abena gasped. She suddenly remembered the basket of firewood she left in the bush when she was rescuing Adoma. She knew she could not give out the basket now, because the hunters might be looking for the owner. And if they found out she was the one who took the dwarf, it would bring big trouble. Abena swallowed hard and forced a small smile. Ah, Mamiase, I am using the basket now. I can't give it out, please. Mamiase raised her eyebrows higher and hissed. You using the basket? What are you using it for now? You are hiding something, Abena. I can smell it, she said, leaning closer, her eyes narrowing suspiciously. Abena's heart was pounding in fear. She pressed her back harder against the door, blocking every space Mamiase might use to see inside the hut. Mamiase, I asked you, what is it you are looking for? Abena asked, her voice becoming firmer. Mamiase shrugged and snapped her fingers. I only came to borrow your basket, but since you are behaving like this, maybe you are hiding a man inside your hut. Abena's eyes widened and her mouth opened for a moment. A man in my hut? Me? Ah, Mamiase, please, leave my compound. Stop talking nonsense, Abena shouted, waving her hands to chase Mamiase away. Mamiase clapped her hands together and shook her head, turning around slowly. Abena, I will come back later. Let me see what you are hiding in this your hut, she said, walking away but still turning her head to look back. Abena watched her until she was out of the compound, before quickly shutting the door and leaning against it. Breathing heavily, she turned around slowly and saw Adoma looking at her with fear and confusion, tears in her eyes. Abena moved to her and sat beside her, touching her hand gently. Don't worry, she has gone. You are safe for now, Abena whispered. Adoma nodded slowly, holding her belly, breathing heavily. Thank you, Abena, thank you, she whispered back. But before Abena could say another word, she heard a loud gasp inside the hut. She turned quickly and saw her son Kwame standing there with his mouth wide open, his eyes looking as if they would fall out. Mommy, Mommy, what is that? Kwame shouted, pointing at Adoma, who was lying weakly on the mat. Abena's heart dropped to her stomach. Adoma tried to cover her face with her hands, tears rolling down her cheeks. Abena rushed to Kwame and placed her hands on his shoulders, trying to calm him down. Kwame, please, don't shout. Please, calm down, Abena said, her voice shaking. Kwame's eyes were still wide and he was trembling. Mommy, what is that? Why does she have a long silver hair? Is she a witch? Is she going to eat us? Kwame cried, stepping backwards. Abena felt tears gather in her own eyes. She did not know how to explain it to her young son. She is not a witch, Kwame. She is a dwarf, but she needs our help. She is not here to hurt us, Abena explained, kneeling to his level. Kwame shook his head, tears dropping from his eyes. "Mommy, the elders say dwarfs take people's souls to the forest. They say dwarfs are dangerous," Kwame said, sniffing and wiping his tears with the back of his hand. Abena hugged him tightly. "Kwame, not all dwarfs are bad. This one is sick and pregnant. The hunters wanted to kill her and her baby. We cannot let them do that. We must help her," Abena whispered into his ear. Kwame's body was shaking, and he looked at Adoma, who was still lying on the mat, her silver long hair shining in the dim light of the hut. Adoma slowly removed her face from her hands and looked at Kwame with tears in her eyes. "I will not hurt you. I promise. I just want to be safe," Adoma said softly. Kwame swallowed hard, looking into Adoma's eyes. Abena held his hand tightly. "Please, Kwame, promise me you will not tell anyone. If people find out, they will take her away and kill her and punish us too." Kwame looked at his mother, then at the crying dwarf, then back at his mother. He nodded slowly, tears still in his eyes. "I will not tell anyone, Mommy," Kwame said softly. Abena hugged him tightly, kissing his head. "Thank you, my son," she whispered. Kwame looked at Adoma again, his eyes softer now. "Are you hungry?" he asked the dwarf shyly. Adoma managed a weak smile, her eyes filled with gratitude. "Yes, thank you," Adoma whispered. Abena stood up quickly, wiping her tears. She moved to the corner of the hut to prepare some hot banku for Adoma, but deep inside her heart, Abena was afraid. She knew that Mamiase would come back again, and if she found out about the dwarf, the whole village would hear about it. She also knew that the hunters would soon realize the dwarf was missing and would begin searching every house. Abena did not know how long she could keep Adoma safe in her hut, but she knew she would try, because deep inside her heart, she knew that this was not just an ordinary dwarf. It was something bigger, something spiritual, something connected to the destiny of her family.
The sun was already high in the sky when Abena finished washing her children's clothes and sweeping the compound. She was trying to act normal, but inside her she was afraid. She kept remembering how she hid Adoma, the pregnant dwarf, in her hat, and how her son, Kwame, promised not to tell anyone. But deep inside, she knew the hunters would come looking, and they did. Hours later, 3 hunters with guns and angry faces entered the village. They were asking everyone they met on the road who went to the forest early this morning to fetch firewood. The person left a basket there, but nobody knew who it was. The hunters themselves did not see Abena's face that morning, so they could not describe her. They went from house to house, knocking on doors, asking people, "Did you see who went to the forest early this morning?" Everyone said no. The hunters were becoming angry. They felt someone in the village was hiding something. They finally arrived at Abena's small mud house. Abena was pounding cassava in a mortar when she heard a loud knock on the door. Her heart jumped. She wiped the sweat from her face with a cloth and went to open the door. The 3 hunters were standing there looking angry and tired. "Good afternoon," Abena greeted them, trying to smile. "Good afternoon," one of the hunters replied coldly. "We are looking for the woman who went to the forest early this morning to fetch firewood. She left her basket there," the hunter said, looking directly into Abena's eyes. Abena's heart was beating very fast, but she controlled herself. She took a deep breath and replied calmly, "I don't know who went to the forest this morning. I have been here since early morning pounding cassava." The hunters looked inside the small hut, but saw nothing suspicious. Abena stood firmly, praying silently that they would leave. After a few seconds, the hunters shrugged and turned away, leaving Abena's compound. Abena quickly shut the door and leaned against it, her chest rising and falling fast. She knew she could not keep the dwarf in her hut anymore, or the hunters might return and search her house. That night, when the moon was shining in the sky and the stars were blinking brightly, Abena called her children, Kwame and his younger sister Ajwa. "Kwame, Ajwa," she whispered, "Mommy is going somewhere. I want you to lock the door from inside and do not open for anyone until I return." "Mommy, where are you going at night?" Kwame asked, worried. "I will come back soon, my son. Just do as I say," Abena said, touching his cheek. The children nodded, and Abena covered Adoma the dwarf with a big cloth, tying it around her to hide her long silver hair and legs. She opened the door gently, looked left and right to see if anyone was watching, and then carried Adoma on her back like a baby. Adoma was weak, but managed to wrap her hands around Abena's neck as Abena carried her through the small bush paths towards the forest. Abena was scared as she walked. Every sound of the crickets and frogs made her heart jump. She was afraid of meeting someone on the way, but she kept moving. Finally, they reached the forest. The moonlight shone through the trees, making it look beautiful. Abena went close to the bigger and tallest palm tree in the forest and carefully placed Adoma down by the palm tree. Adoma was breathing heavily, her hands on her big belly. "Thank you, Abena," Adoma whispered, tears rolling down her cheeks. "You saved me and my baby." Abena knelt beside her, tears in her own eyes. "I pray you will be safe, Adoma," Abena said. Adoma managed a small smile, and then she slowly walked to a small hole beneath the large palm tree. As soon as her hand touched the hole, it shone brightly and her strength returned. She turned and looked at Abena one last time. "Abena, your kindness will not be forgotten," Adoma said softly. Then a wind blew, and Adoma went into the hole, disappearing under the large palm tree. Abena stood there for a long time, looking at the quiet forest, the moon reflecting through the trees. She turned around and walked back home, her heart heavy but peaceful. 7 days later, Abena woke up in the middle of the night because she wanted to pee outside. She tied her cloth around her waist and opened the door quietly so as not to wake her children. As she stepped outside, she stopped suddenly. In front of her door, she saw 3 gold boxes shining under the moonlight. Abena looked around quickly, but there was no one. She bent down and touched the boxes. They were real and heavy. Abena was confused. She opened the boxes one day and found that they were filled with gold, coral beads, and silver coins. Abena sold some of the golden beads secretly, and with the money, she bought a bigger house in the village. She bought new clothes for her children, and they started eating good food every day. People in the village began to notice that Abena was looking beautiful. Her children were looking healthy, and she was no longer wearing old clothes. Abena became the wealthiest woman in the village, but she never told anyone how she got the gold. Every night, she would sit outside under the moon and look at the direction of the forest, smiling and praying for Adoma and her baby. She knew in her heart that it was Adoma the dwarf who left the gold boxes for her as a thank you for saving her life and her baby. Abena taught her children to always help people in need and to show kindness to strangers. And whenever someone in the village asked her, "Abena, how did you become so rich?" she would smile and say, "Kindness always comes back." And that was how a poor woman who helped a pregnant dwarf became the wealthiest woman in the village. Thank you for staying with me till the end. Every story we share carries a lesson, a spark of hope, strength, or warning. If this story touched you, inspired you, or made you think, show some love, like, share, and subscribe so you don't miss the next one.